The tension snapped back into the spotlight the moment Cameron started throwing slick shots that many took as direct hits toward Jim Jones. Because when Harlem legends start talking sideways, the streets listen immediately. What made this situation different wasn't loud screaming or obvious name-calling.
Cam used to be scared to death of them niggas to the point he didn't want to come outside. I didn't understand it because I'm from downtown. You heard? We had our own set of killers.
The Rap Cat Podcast.
Dame impact in Harlem was nothing. Not to say it like that. Dame came up under hustlers that impact was it. He was a little dude when it came to hustling in Harlem. He wasn't not no Rich Porter, none of that type of. He wanted to hustle. He wanted to hustle for niggas like Rich Porter and shit like that. Dame from the East Side. When the niggas on the East Side is different from the niggas from the West Side. Now for the East Side, Dame was a big deal to us because we were little and he was coming from the West Side, little car, jewelry, and all that. So when you're young, he's looking like Rich Porter, but in reality, no, he was like this, nigga, go to the store, nigga, take a couple grams, get out of here.
The Rap Cat Podcast.
When you cancel out the street side of it and go into the music business of it, what was his impact with Dipset at that time?
He didn't have no impact with Dipset. Dipset, we made our impact on our own.
It was the tone. Cam delivered his comments with that calm, almost playful confidence, but the words carried weight. Subtle disrespect sometimes hits harder than direct insults, and once the clip started circulating, fans began dissecting every syllable like it was coded language. Cam didn't shout, he didn't rage, he spoke with that seasoned veteran energy, implying that loyalty, leadership, and legacy weren't lining up the way people think. That implication alone was enough to spark wildfire conversation. Harlem history runs deep. The Dipset era wasn't just music, it was movement, it was identity. So when one pillar of that movement starts hinting that the foundation wasn't solid, it shakes nostalgia hard.
When y'all came over to Rockefeller, did y'all bring a certain energy that kind of ruffled the feathers of like state property and people like that?
When we came over to Rockefeller, it was all love. Everybody in the studios doing music, state property, Fleek and them, diplomats. Everybody was doing music there. That shit ain't started until they went through all that damn shit.
So Joel said Cam took over the rock, huh?
I mean, in that sense,
The Rap Cat Podcast.
Mace was talented. He was a dancer. And Mace didn't excel at the rapping really to after high school they started getting on and shit like that, and then he excelled and started getting on first and signed first, and then that helped Cam and everybody get on and shit like that. But as far as making a name for themselves in the street, nobody had no name in the street like that. You know what I mean?
Big L.
Right. Big L had a name for himself. He was rapping early. He was signed early. He had some dangerous ass brothers.
That was Cam said.
They was uptown, really shaking and moving and shit like that. You dig? And that's not my part of town. I was uptown. You dig? Yeah, Cam used to be scared to death of them niggas to the point he didn't want to come outside. I didn't understand it because I'm from downtown. You heard? We had our own set of killers.
Jim Jones didn't stay silent. Silence in hip-hop can look like weakness, especially when the narrative starts forming without rebuttal. So when Jim responded, the energy shifted again. His tone wasn't playful. It felt defensive, but controlled. Defensive control shows pride. Pride fuels rivalry. The streets immediately picked sides. Some said Cam was just speaking truth in his usual slick fashion. Others said he was reopening wounds that didn't need air. Loyalty is sacred in Harlem culture. Once loyalty gets questioned publicly, ego gets involved. And when ego enters, drama multiplies. The situation escalated because both artists have built reputations on standing firm. Neither is known for backing down when their credibility gets challenged. That's why this exchange feels bigger than random social media chatter. It feels personal. What made it explosive is the history behind it. Dipset's rise wasn't smooth. There were internal shifts, power moves, and moments where alliances looked shaky even before the public knew. Cam's comments seemed to suggest that the internal story was different from the polished public version. That suggestion alone changes how people replay old memories. Jim's response didn't attack wildly. It focused on defending his contribution and status. That approach framed the tension as a matter of respect rather than petty beef. Respect disputes cut deeper because they question identity. The internet amplified everything. Every repost came with captions exaggerating tone. Every reaction video added interpretation. Interpretation fuels narrative. Narrative fuels conflict. The streets love when legends clash because it feels historic, but they also hate seeing unity fracture. That emotional contradiction is why this drama feels intense. This isn't two newcomers chasing clout. These are seasoned names with decades of shared history. When shared history fractures publicly, fans feel invested, and once fans feel invested, the conversation doesn't slow down. As the back and forth gained traction, the deeper layer of this drama started revealing itself, because this wasn't just about words, it was about legacy ownership. Cam's commentary hinted at questions about leadership and who truly carried the movement during its peak years. Leadership debates are dangerous territory. When someone questions who was steering the ship, they're also questioning who deserves the crown. Jim's brand has always centered around loyalty and grind. He positioned himself as the one who stayed solid through turbulence. So when Cam implied imbalance in effort or vision, that struck at Jim's core narrative. Core narratives are fragile when challenged publicly. The streets started revisiting old footage. Old interviews resurfaced, old award show moments, old performance clips. Fans looked for subtle tension in body language that maybe went unnoticed years ago. Retrospective analysis changes perception fast. Cam's delivery style made it worse for Jim because it felt confident and slightly amused. Amusement can read as superiority. When one side looks amused and the other looks serious, the optics tilt. Optics shape opinion. Jim's response leaned heavier, emphasizing his role, his grind, his independent moves. That defense wasn't random, it was strategic. He wasn't attacking Cam's character directly, he was defending his own resume. The streets know resume talk is coded language for don't minimize me. In hip-hop, minimizing someone's impact is almost worse than insulting them. Impact defines legacy. The tension also highlights how time changes relationships. What once felt unified can evolve into separate identities. Cam built his own brand beyond Dipset. Jim built his own empire too. Independence sometimes creates unspoken competition. Competition between former allies always feels sharper than competition between strangers. There's shared knowledge, shared memories, shared secrets. Social media amplified minor facial expressions from interviews. Screenshots froze moments mid-sentence and turned them into memes. Memes reduce complex emotion into simple narratives. Those simple narratives spread faster than truth. The streets don't necessarily crave destruction. They crave authenticity, and authenticity feels raw when former allies speak freely. This drama also reminded fans that movements are rarely as unified behind the scenes as they appear publicly. Unity on stage doesn't always mean unity off stage. Cam's shots weren't reckless. They were calculated enough to spark response, but vague enough to avoid full-blown escalation. That calculation shows experience. Jim's response showed restraint. Restraint in hip-hop drama sometimes earns more respect than explosive retaliation, but restraint doesn't mean resolution, and unresolved tension keeps the streets talking. As debates intensified, the conversation shifted toward the bigger question of how hip-hop handles internal conflict within iconic groups, because history shows that separation rarely happens without scars. Fans started comparing this tension to other legendary splits, drawing parallels about ego, control, and creative direction. Cam's words carried the weight of someone who feels ownership over a foundation. Ownership language often sparks defensiveness from others who feel equally foundational. Jim's camp subtly pushed back by emphasizing hustle and loyalty narratives. Hustle language reinforces authenticity. Authenticity builds fan sympathy. The streets understand that both men contributed heavily to the Dipset wave, but contribution doesn't automatically equal perception. Sometimes one face becomes the symbol while others feel overshadowed. Overshadowing creates silent resentment. Silent resentment eventually speaks. This exchange feels like long simmering tension finally bubbling up. Bubbling tension is unpredictable. It can cool down quickly or explode dramatically. The internet thrives on explosive outcomes. But so far, both artists have kept it measured. Measured conflict can feel more intense because it sounds intentional. Fans also began analyzing lyrical content from recent releases, searching for subliminal references. Hip-hop fans love decoding. Decoding turns every line into potential evidence. The streets debate whether this is strategic promotion or genuine frustration. Strategic conflict boosts streams, genuine frustration boosts emotion. Either way, attention rises. Attention is currency in modern hip hop, but this situation doesn't feel manufactured. The tone carries weight of history rather than marketing. Legacy debates always get messy because they involve pride. Pride isn't easily negotiated. Cam's confidence suggests he feels secure in his legacy. Jim's firmness suggests he feels equally secure. Two secure egos rarely bow easily. This dynamic keeps tension balanced. Neither side looks weak. Neither side looks dominant. The streets appreciate when conflict stays verbal rather than chaotic. Verbal conflict showcases intellect and presence. Still, fans worry about deeper fractures. Harlem unity has symbolic value beyond music. When symbolic unity cracks, culture reacts emotionally, and emotional reaction keeps narratives alive for months. When everything is examined closely, this chapter between Jim Jones and Cameron isn't about insults. It's about how legends redefine their relationship in public view. Time changes alliances. Success reshapes identity. What once felt like shared mission evolves into individual brand protection. Cam's shots reopened old questions about leadership and credit. Jim's response defended grind and loyalty. Both narratives can coexist, but coexistence doesn't mean harmony. The streets are watching to see whether this tension escalates into direct confrontation or fades into respectful distance. Either outcome reshapes how Dipset history is remembered. What makes this compelling is the maturity behind it. There's no reckless chaos, no wild threats, just pointed commentary layered with history. Layered history makes every word heavier. Fans crave clarity, but clarity isn't always given in hip-hop politics. Ambiguity keeps stories alive. This moment doesn't erase past achievements, it complicates them. Complication adds depth. The culture often romanticizes unity while ignoring tension. This exchange forces recognition that even iconic movements had internal debates. Jim remains respected for his hustle. Cam remains respected for his vision. Respect doesn't eliminate rivalry. Rivalry sometimes fuels legacy rather than destroying it. The streets will likely replay this exchange whenever Harlem dominance gets discussed. It becomes a footnote in a larger saga. And sagas never truly end. They evolve. What matters most is that both men controlled their tone. Controlled tone prevents irreversible damage. Still, pride is powerful. Pride can either cool conflict or ignite it further. Only time reveals which direction this story moves. But one thing is clear. When Harlem icons speak, the culture listens carefully. If you stayed locked in through this entire breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story the streets won't stop talking about.